Thank you. Welcome everyone to the City Council meeting for October 15th, 2019. I'm Brian Reedy, the mayor. I'll call the meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Mayor Rudy.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Clark.
Here.
Councilmember Johnson.
Present.
Councilmember Spear.
Here.
Councilmember Mortensen.
Here.
Councilmember Castle.
Here.
Councilmember Neal.
Present.
Thank you, Karen. Next item on the agenda, we have a special presentation. I'd like to invite Commissioner Scott James regarding the 2020 Weld County budget to approach.
Thank you, Mayor and members of council. My name is Scott James. I'm very proud to be your Weld County Commissioner from District 2. To give you an understanding of where District 2 is, District 2, if you just stick a pin down in Greeley at about 28th Avenue and 10th Street and go everything to the southwest of there, with the exception of Erie. Only Commissioner Kirkmeyer could handle Erie. I get everything else. And so it is an absolute pleasure to be able to represent that district and to be able to speak to you this evening. I'd like to try to get together with my, now is there a clicker? A clicker. I'd like to get together with my municipalities maybe once or even twice a year and kind of talk about what's going on with the county. We are going through our 2020 budget process right now, so it's a good time to get together and speak to you folks about money. So I thought I'd just put together a quick little presentation about exactly what's going on in Weld County financially. So our 2020 budget plan includes the continued emphasis on long-term planning and investment consistent with the Weld County Strategic Plan and Strategic Investment Plan for the future of Weld County. I read fast as to not take up your time, and I've given you all a copy of this presentation here. Now, our 2020 budget addresses investment in the long term, continue to strengthen the financial management in Weld County. We'll improve county operations, and we'll invest heavily in technology. Plus, we'll focus on employee engagement and workforce development. Our 2020 financial condition in Weld County, we're pretty darn lucky, actually. We have no long-term debt, no short-term debt. We have no county sales tax. We have one-time expenses of $77 million proposed for 2020. We have one of the lowest mill levies among Colorado counties at 15.038 mills. If you know anything about the way we do our mill levy in Weld County, we have actually the ability to take 23 mills assessment from you, but we don't. We have refunded for the last several years 8 mills of that. We are thinking, depending on what we do here at budget time, of making 2 of those mills permanent. So every year for the last decade or so, we've given you 8 mills back. We're thinking about actually making 2 of those permanent. But it is a little bit of a tenuous time budgetarily, especially in Weld County. As you'll find out here in a couple of seconds, oil and gas has a rather major impact on our finances. We have a beginning fund balance of $113,660,000. We have a projected ending fund balance of $171,511,239. We have a fully funded pension plan. And plus, we are proposing to reduce the retirement plan investment return assumption from 7% to 6.5% by December 31st of this year. We have an oil and gas revenue fluctuation reserve in the contingency fund of $60 million. I get a lot of questions about exactly what that is. We know that, and as you'll see here in a couple of minutes, Weld County's revenue is largely derived from oil and gas. We know that is a commodity-driven and currently political polarized commodity. And so therefore, we think it only prudent to take some of the money that we have been so blessed with here over the last couple of years and simply sink it into a contingency fund. That's nothing more than $60 million in a rainy day fund to help us if that particular commodity-driven business goes south a little bit. In 2020 through 2024, we'll have a capital improvement plan. Facilities will be funded at $75,275,000. Our preliminary assessed value is up 34.13%. I'm sure you've heard that from some of your citizens. Our assessed value in Weld County was up dramatically. They say, well, why'd you raise my taxes? Well, we didn't raise your taxes, but your assessed value went up. That is both a blessing and a curse. It's a blessing when it comes to, boy, we've got homes that are worth more. Kind of a curse when it comes to property taxes because that assessed value does go up. $15.479 billion in Weld County this year. A lot of that due to oil and gas. Our oil and gas assessed valuation of the county is up 45.33%. We will complete the construction of the $45 million jail expansion in Weld County in 2020, and what's cool about that is we'll write a check. There is no debt on that. Here's just a quick look at our revenue fund totals. You'll see that the net property tax is the largest chunk of that at 44% of our revenue funds. Intergovernmental transfers, a lot of that has to do with the funding of our Department of Human Services at 13%. Fees at $14 million at 3%. Licensing permits, $6.8 million at 1%. Miscellaneous at $24 million or about 5%. And of course, that big fund balance of $113 million at 22% of our total funds. Our expenditures in the coming year include the largest chunk is public safety, what Sheriff Reams wants, Sheriff Reams gets. We are proud of the safe county that we have, and so therefore that consumes 22% of our budget. Our road and bridge fund is right behind at $65 million or 19% of our budget. Human services comprises about 3% of our budget. Our general government expenses, just the process of running government in Weld County, is about 14% of our budget at $49.5 million. Social services, about 13% of our budget at $45 million. Our budget highlights, our assessed value again increased 34.13% or $3.939 billion in the last year alone due to oil and gas largely. We'll add 75 full-time employees to all county departments to cope with the growth and workload demands. Has anybody had either the pleasure or the absolute horror of seeing the state demographer's presentation? Has anybody seen Elizabeth Garner's presentation? It indicates that Weld County right now is about 363,000 persons. We will grow by 2050 to 391,000 persons. We'll more than double in size. Be about 717,000 persons by 2050. So therefore, we are trying to keep up on the Weld County government side by adding 75 full-time employees in 2020. The new Department of Oil and Gas Energy will be staffed with 15 full-time employees. Will regulate oil and gas operations under Senate Bill 19181. 19181 did give us the authority to assume that local control. We declared 1041 authority over the entire county, and we took that local control. We will fully recover the $1.9 million cost of that department solely through fees. The industry is used to paying those fees. They pay them to the Colorado Oil and Gas Conservation Commission, or they pay us here. They will pay us here, and that'll be a push to you, the kind taxpayer. With passage of House Bill 1278, there will be presidential primary this year. New election mandates increase the cost of elections by nearly $1.5 million, as your clerk well knows. We'll have to do a couple of different elections this year. So therefore, we have budgeted $1.5 million to cover the unfunded mandates passed along to us by our kind friends at the state legislature in House Bill 1278. A public trustee function will be moved under the county treasurer beginning July 1st and will no longer be a governor's appointee. The creation of 2 new district court judges is required simply to keep up with the population here in Weld County. That means we'll have to add district attorney staff of 5 full-time folks, and the sheriff will have to add 6 full-time deputies there at the courthouse. That will cost the county $1.138 million. We'll gladly pay that simply because that means we get an expansion in our justice system in Weld County, which we have needed for the last several years. Sheriff's Office will transition the management of criminal records and evidence that used to be stored and shared process with the City of Greeley. We're taking that back from the City of Greeley. The contract to bring the 2 functions in-house by January 1, 2021, so we're budgeting for that in 2020. And finally, we'll add 29 full-time employees to the Sheriff's Office simply to be added to that record-keeping department to, again, fund what is a growing county. More of our budget highlights, we will open a Southwest Weld substation booking function. So the folks down in the heart of my district, down in Johnstown, Milliken, Frederick, Firestone, Meade, Erie, Tacona, will be able to take, when they catch a bad guy, they won't have to run them all the way to O Street. They'll be able to take them just to the Southwest Weld building, which quite frankly might be quicker for your folks here, depending on where they're at in Evans. We fund increased our salary adjustments for all sworn sheriff officers to be competitive with other front-range law enforcement agencies for recruitment and retention of officers. We got to be competitive in the marketplace. Public Safety Information System, known as Spillman, will be updated and or replaced in 2020. And either way, we will provide a much better service to not only the sheriff's departments, but all the folks who use the emergency operations system, the communication system in Weld County. Communications will phase in recovering 40% of costs through user fees versus 20%. So therefore, we're putting more of the burden down onto you. You're welcome. But what's interesting is the fact that Weld County has provided this service. The capacity that Weld County itself uses has only been around 20%. The 80% consumed by the other agencies. The largest percentage of that chargeback will be borne by the fire departments, who basically paid nothing for it. We'll fund the oil and gas revenue fluctuation reserve. I mentioned that at $60 million in 2020. Our capital investments in the county information technology infrastructure. We have a data center storage that we're putting in, plus fiber redundancy to assure continuity of government. That'll be funded at $2.25 million. The 2020 through 2024 capital improvements plan, as I mentioned, is at $75 million, and we'll complete the construction of that jail for $45 million. All of the cash, which we're proud of. Plus, we begin construction of a new coroner's morgue, which, by the way, Mayor Rudy, if you'd like to come to my office, I'll have a lovely view of the new morgue from my office.
Perfect.
So you're welcome to stop by. Just to take a look at our property taxes and exactly where the increased value came. You'll see the 2018 preliminary or final assessed value and the 2019 preliminary assessed value. In vacant land, that increased by 37%. Residential properties by 22%, commercial properties by 22%. In fact, you'll see every sort of property, every property classification in Weld County increased, with the possible exception of one, which to this farm and ranch kid who grew up about 3 miles south of here is a little bit alarming. The agricultural assessed values were down 4.29% last year. You have to understand how that valuation is taken. What we do in Weld County is we take a 10-year rolling average of the commodity that's produced on that particular land. And if you know any farmer, they haven't made 2 nickels on a bushel of corn in the last 40 years. And regrettably, that's exactly what we're feeling right there, which is why you'll see a downtick in what is proudly one of Weld County's stalwarts. We know, folks know us for oil and gas, but we are still an agricultural county. We're very proud to be the number 8 ag producing county in the nation. We're number 1 in sheep and goats, number 2 in cattle and calves, number 7 in dairy. That's nationwide in Weld County. 64 counties in Colorado. 27% of the ag production comes from one county, and we're proud to say you're sitting in it. Sadly, still, though, the assessed valuation on ag lands went down 4.29%. Some charts and graphs, because they're impressive, and the finance people like to put them up here. You see the value changes there. The biggest value change, not only in assessed but in increased value, is obviously oil and gas. And the preliminary assessed value by class in 2019, oil and gas accounts for 63% of our assessed value in Weld County, which is why we feel it prudent to continue to fund that oil and gas contingency fund, because that is a number that can fluctuate. And certainly we have all our eggs in one basket right now. We don't budget that way. We'll take the money when it comes in, and we'll improve the roads, and we'll pay cash for buildings. But we will not budget as if all our money will continue to come that way. 5-year capital expansion programs. We will continue to put money into the jail capital reserve, because even when we get the shiny new extension open in 2020, everybody knows that you can need to continue to build jail space, so we'll just continue to save money for that. We fund a capital reserve plan for the jail expansion every year. Jail equipment this year will have a one-time expenditure of $861,000. Those improvements on the Southeast Weld building will cost us about $6 million. The one that I always find interesting is, I need to ask about this. We're putting in a car wash at $3 million? You guys should bring your cars down. Actually, that's something that we've been paying for. We have cards, and the deputies and everybody who drives a county vehicle take them around to the different car washes. We internalize that, and that will actually be a way that we can save Weld County taxpayers money. Our Justice Center will put $1.5 million into this year. And the evidence that we talked about there's a $2 million expenditure to take that evidence back to a local-based basis. I think that's it. I talk fast. I'm happy to answer questions.
Anybody have questions for the commissioner? First off, I just want to say thank you for being here. The commissioner and I meet every couple weeks, and so I get a little background on what's going on there, and you guys are doing a great job, in my opinion.
Thank you.
And I'm able to fill in the commissioner on things going on here in Evans, so it's been a great relationship, and I look forward to keeping that going.
I'm very proud to have a small piece of Evans in my district. And congratulations, Councillor Johnson, on your honor. That's incredible.
you.
I wished I could remember what it was like to be under 40. It's a long time. Maybe someday I'll get 60 under 60, but they better hurry. Also, I do want to commend you. I think that's incredible, but to miss the town and county dinner where we have a cheesy and somewhat lukewarm Mexican catered dinner, I can't believe you're not going to be there.
I'm sad about that.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
If there's not any questions, I appreciate your time very much, and I'll let you get on with your meeting.
Councilmember Neal?
Yes, I wish you'd pass along to the other council members or commissioners that I appreciate very much that they recognize the historic Colorado has historically been a boom-bust state, and they recognize that oil and gas could be just disappear just like that. And they, instead of spending every cent they're getting from the oil and gas, they're reserving some of it for that contingency.
Thank you,
I
Councilor.
appreciate that very much.
We feel that the prudent thing to do. Obviously, it would be fun to go out and spend it all, but we're not going to. We're going to. We know it's a commodity-driven thing. We've got the additional uncertainty in the regulatory environment this year, and so we felt it only proven to kind of sock away a little bit more of that money and not spend it all at once.
Anyone else? Questions or comments for the commissioner?
Thank you. Keep up the good work. My card is on there. Just phone number away. I'm going to be home before you even get out of here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner, for being here. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is audience participation. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to address City Council? Please step up to the podium, state your name and address.
My name is Michael Mendes, and I live at 4010 Central Street in Evans, Colorado. So $32,000, 2 months, no help. It's kind of been my life the last 2 months. I'm a full-time student at CSU. Recently moved to Evans last May. I bought a house over in Old Side. My house this past July began flooding. When we contacted the city, their response was to come out, test the water for chlorine, and after that pass me off to the city risk manager, whose primary job is to mitigate loss for the city, from my understanding. I've had 3 different professionals in the engineering field, one being a groundwater engineer, a geothermal engineer, and a structural engineer all come out, take a look at my property, all of which who, according to the city believes that it is groundwater. All 3 of these professionals believe it is not due to groundwater, but rather the flood irrigation system in the neighborhood. I have old 100-year-old clay pipes that run along the premises of my property. They state that our belief is that it's coming from the irrigation, and like I said, when we've stated that to the city, we've gotten no response. I've spoken to Randy Reddy, I've spoken to just about everybody except for Brian himself. At this point, I have no other option. I believe each of you should have received an email with the notice of claim before this email. Like I said, I'm a taxpaying a taxpaying resident. You guys the city's motto is citizen-driven service for the welfare of the community. I mean, imagine if this is happening to me, what is happening to everybody that doesn't have that voice? All I'm asking for is help. I haven't been able to receive anything. Not even a response. So, that's all I got.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is approval of the agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda?
There are no changes to the agenda.
I move to approve the agenda.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those nay. Motion passes. Item 7, consent agenda. Item A, approval of the minutes of October 1st, 2019. Item B, consideration of ordinance number 705-19, an ordinance appropriating money to defray expenses as provided in the 2020 budget, second reading.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
A motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Item A, new business, consideration of resolution number 25-2019, a resolution establishing a name for the dedicated park located at 34th Street and 15th Avenue. We'll hear from staff.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, members of the council. I will turn to Brian Stone, our Recreation Special Projects Manager, for a very brief overview of the process and the outcome of the City Council work session at your last meeting.
Good evening, Mayor Rudy and members of council. Brian Stone, Recreation and Special Projects Manager. As Jim mentioned, I'm here to discuss the park naming at 34th Street and 15th Avenue. Per city policy, we initiated the naming process back in May and submitted, and we received over 60 submittals from community members, boards and commissions, Parks and Rec Advisory Board, and City Council. The submittal period was closed after 60 days and ended in July. Recommendations for this park were discussed at our October 1st work session meeting. Based on the suggested names and input from the Parks and Rec Advisory Board, as well as you as City Council members, the recommended name for this location is Charles H. Welch Park. Sergeant Welch served in the Army and was a member of the 7th U.S. Cavalry. He was awarded the Medal of Honor for his extraordinary service at Little Bighorn. And with that, staff recommends adopting this resolution for the park name at 3315 15th Avenue. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Brian. Questions from staff?
No questions?
Comments? Good.
I'd like to know for the record that Sergeant Welch this was for more of a humanitarian type action under fire. He was left his place of concealment at a higher elevation to go down to get water for the troops at a spring under fire and return. And I believe he did this multiple times, if I remember correctly. So an award for bravery under fire for humanitarian reasons, I feel is well deserved recognition for this park.
Thank you for that addition. That is correct.
Councilmember Neal, any other comments or questions?
I just want to say thank you to everybody that participated in the voting and participated in helping us name the park and everything. There's a lot of very good names that were suggested, and there were some quite unusual, but it was really great to see how big of a turnout we had for the naming of the park. So I appreciate everybody that.
Yes.
I echo that as well. Thank you to everyone that participated. This is always great to get the community to also partake in something like this. So,
Other comments, questions? I think it's a fantastic name for a park. I wish we had enough parks to name everyone that's ever served, but this gentleman earned the Medal of Honor and he's buried in our cemetery. I think it's a great honor for him. I do hope that when the plaque goes out with his name, we put a little bit underneath him about what he did.
Yeah, we'll
Why the park was
definitely,
named that.
yes, we'll share that with you before we get that posted.
Thank you.
I have one more question, Brian. Is this dedication or naming going to be advertised to the neighborhood so that people can come to it, or?
I haven't put much thought into the unveil of a name, but we definitely could do that. I know Chief Brent was actually going to look and see if he could look into the family and see if there was any local ties to Mr. Welch, and if that's the case, it'd be a nice recognition for them and the family.
Absolutely.
No other questions or comments? I entertain a motion.
I move to adopt resolution number 25-2019.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to adopt resolution number 25-2019. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Item B, consideration of resolution 24-2019, a resolution regarding the petition for annexation filed by Solstice Holdings, LLC, in connection with the Peakview development and setting the matter for a public hearing.
Yeah, I'm going to recuse myself from this just because Peakview Solstice is one of my clients, so.
Thank you. We'll hear from staff.
I will turn this one over to our city attorney, Scott Krob, who prepared the item.
All right, thank you, Mayor and members of council. In the course of working on the Peakview development, staff and the developer discovered that when the Peakview property was annexed to the city, there was a small slice that was omitted because of a land swap that had been done by a couple of the previous owners. So this is an annexation petition that we've received from the developer asking that this slice be included into the city, which they thought was in there all along, because this is an important slice for their development. So it's an annexation that's submitted by 100% of the property owner, which is just the developer, Solstice. And there are 3 legislative acts that a city council does in connection with an annexation, and this is the first of those. Once the city receives a petition for annexation, then it is incumbent on the city to adopt a resolution that sets it for what's called an eligibility hearing. And that's what you have tonight, is the resolution that sets that eligibility hearing, and we've suggested a date of November 19th, because it has to be more than 30 and less than 60 days from today. At that eligibility hearing, you will determine if the parcel of property is qualified to be added to the city, which just means, does it have the required 1/6 contiguity, is there a commonality of interest, and so on and so forth. And that seems to be fairly straightforward for this parcel, for this slice, because it's part of the bigger parcel that's already in the city. Then the third step is to adopt an ordinance, because the eligibility determination just says this piece qualifies to be included. It's never required for a city to annex property. It's always a discretionary act by the city. So the third step is for the city to exercise that discretion and say, we want to include this slice within the city. I anticipate that we will encourage council to take both the second step of finding it's eligible and the third step of actually annexing it at the November 19th meeting. But tonight, all you're doing is acknowledging that you got a petition and setting it for a hearing on November 19th.
Thank you, Scott. Any questions for the city attorney?
I have none.
I have none.
Pretty easy. Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion.
I move to approve resolution number 24-209 as presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve resolution number 24-2019 as presented. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Item C, consideration of 37th Street Utility Improvements Contract Change Order. Hear from staff.
Thank you, Mayor. Progress on the 37th Street Utility Improvements Project continues on pace at this point. You may have seen some of the work completed. They're completing the water line now, and we had also reported to you on completion of a significant portion of the sewer line. Also, at this point in the project, however, we do have a better sense working with the contractor on the need for a change order. I'll ask our engineering staff to summarize the details of the change order, but I will steal the bottom line and just let council know that the resulting change order that we're asking for your approval for tonight results only from the changes to the project that the city has requested and the cost for those changes that will give us a better product and less maintenance in the long run, and not any other changes that may have been caused by the, or delays that may have been caused by the contractor. So all we're recommending in the change order are the city-directed changes. And I will ask our engineering staff to summarize a couple more of the specifics.
Good evening. In the background, on October 1st of this year, staff brought to the council presentation for consideration. One of the items that's in the change order request was a contract extension and a request. The second item was a request for a owner cash allowance budget extension. In review of those on the contract time extension, the contractor had submitted a written request for a contract extension for substantial completion to December 18th. Currently, the contract calls for November 10th. That equals 25 calendar day, or working days. Staff performed a comprehensive review of those days that would be eligible for contract extension, and we found that they were 30 days that were eligible under the contract requirements. I have the eligible days by category. 14 and a half days for differing subsurface or physical conditions, 2.7 days for underground facilities abandoned, unknown, or unmarked, 7.5 days for additional work requested by the city, and 5.25 days for weather delays. At that time, staff recommended approval of extension of the date of substantial completion to December 18th, 2019. And subsequently a new date for final completion, which is by contract 30 days after that, which would be January 18th, 2019. So on that order of business, are there any questions?
Questions?
Going on for the second part of the change order request was an extension of budget for the owner cash allowance request. The owner's cash allowance is a budgeted amount that the city puts in there, and that is for the city's discretion on what we spend it on. The original budget was $100,000. Spent to date is $112,633. The expenditures that we have on there, again, it's by owner discretion, was additional sewer manholes installed, additional work required for the contractor due to site conditions, additional asphalt patching due to site conditions, removal and replacement of water lines in conflict with the sewer installation, and connection of existing sewer services to the new sewer main that we found as we progressed. Staff anticipates there may be other expenses related to the project as we finish up the water line and also the storm sewer that would be unforeseen, unexpected, and/or resulting in additional work. To cover the current cost overrun and a budget for future potential expenses, staff is requesting an extension of the owner cash allowance from $100,000 to $200,000. Any questions on that item?
The one thing to note is that the additional 100,000 will only be spent if we encounter something or something changes within the project that was not anticipated or is not shown on the plans. So that we don't plan on just spending the money. If it's not needed, we will keep the money in hand.
Mm-hmm.
Questions,
No questions.
comments?
And we will also document the same way as we expend these expenses also.
I just want to say thank you to both of you for the level of attention you brought with this and the level of detail. I think you were able to take something that for myself as a layman, you were able to simplify it, but really bring such level of detail that it gives me confidence in knowing that this is the right decision. So as a resident, I greatly appreciate the detail you brought. I greatly appreciate you keeping a watchful eye on this and just knowing every facet of the project. I think you're doing an excellent job, and you should be really proud of yourself. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Great. Anyone else? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion.
I move the City Council approve a 37th Street Utilities Project contract change order to extend the time for substantial completion by 25 working days until December 18th, 2019, and to authorize an additional $100,000 for the owner's cash allowance.
Second.
I have a motion and a second that the City Council approve a 37th Street Utility Project contract change order to extend the time for substantial completion by 25 working days until December 18th, 2019, and to authorize an additional $100,000 for the owner cash allowance. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Item 9, report, city manager.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to point up our upcoming public town hall style meetings about our roads and potential solutions. I just want to reiterate that the meetings are this Thursday, 6:30 at the community complex, on Saturday, the 19th, at the Riverside Library and Community Center in the morning, and then October 22nd, which is next Tuesday, at the N.K. Hyman School, I believe at 7 o'clock. These meetings have been promoted in all the ways that we can. We've made some investment to try to attract our residents to come learn about our roads and the potential sales tax solution. We've placed ads in the Greeley Tribune. We sent postcards to all residential addresses. We've used all of our social media channels. We have used yard signs in English and Spanish. And we've also, we're using our variable message boards to just put the word out. So we hope to have good turnouts and really begin the public education in earnest here. One of the big things we'll be asking attendees to do is help us with more meetings. We want to get ourselves in front of as many people as we can, HOAs, school groups, churches, neighborhoods, anyone who wants to hear more, spend more time learning about infrastructure and roads. We'll talk to them. So that'll be the big ask at the end of those meetings, and we certainly welcome all of our community to attend. That's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you, Jim.
Jim, on your report, it says that the closure of 37th Street from Denver to the railroad tracks was beginning on the 7th of October and extended to the 11th of October. Today's the 15th. It looks like it's still closed.
I will ask our city engineer to provide an update.
We, first thing we encountered when they started digging was they ran into groundwater, and they were actually, had 4 pumps running continuously to pump out the groundwater. The second thing we encountered that we didn't anticipate or wasn't shown was the sewer line and the water line were in such close proximity to each other that we had to stop and figure out a workaround to finish the construction of the sewer line. And the third thing we encountered, which was just the other day, was a storm sewer, an old storm sewer, which was abandoned. And this was the first one I've ever seen. It was a ductile iron pipe inside a galvanized pipe. So that was going underneath the railroad, and we've determined that that could be just cut away. But it took us half a day to try to make sure that it wasn't something live that we would, if we broke it, that it would create some serious problems. So that was part of the delays that we encountered in terms of getting the project done. I think the road is open as of this evening, and tomorrow or the next day we'll be moving into the storm sewer phase of the project, in which we will maintain 2 lanes of traffic in both directions.
How far down was that groundwater?
The trench was about, when I got in it the other day, it was about 6 feet deep, and that's where the groundwater was.
Yeah, that's my understanding, is the groundwater is about 6 foot. So.
Right, and they had pumps running, and if you'll see the area just to the east side of the furniture store, it's a puddle right now, because that's where they're pumping all the water.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
City attorney.
Just a couple items, based on the number of land use documents and development agreements that we're reviewing. There's lots going on in the development arena for Evans. And then we think we've located and identified the proper person to serve as the assistant city attorney, and are pursuing getting a contract with them and getting them on board probably in the next 30 to 60 days. And that's all I've got.
Thank you, Scott. Next item on the agenda is audience participation. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to address city council on any item? Seeing none, next item is executive session.
We go into executive session to discuss a possible acquisition or transfer of property, and discuss the matter that may be subject to negotiation, and to instruct negotiators pursuant to CRS 24-6-402, Section 4, subsections A and C.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to go into executive session. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes.